Hey guys, Jordan back with another review for you. Today we're looking at the TerraMaster D2-310. This is a storage solution for 2.5 and 3.5 inch drives that then goes to your PC or Mac via USB. Then you've got options to configure your drives into single drives, RAID or even JBOD, which then in turn allows you to use it as a storage device, maybe for backups, your files, or even editing from if you're using SSDs. Obviously you can use different drives in there. There's some examples that they've given using Western Digital RAID 2 terabytes, which you get an estimated writing speed of 280 meg and a reading speed of 290. Using regular drives you get an average of 120 on the write and then 100 on the read. Now I'm actually going to be using this with SSD, so if you're looking for a review that's using hard drives, I'd recommend checking another one out. If you've watched my reviews before, you know that I looked at a QNAP NAS a little while ago, and I'm actually using Western Digital RAID drives in that. And obviously if I take those out and put them in this device, it's going to wipe those off, so obviously I can't go switching them out. So for this case, I will be using an SSD that I've got. So there's not really too much to look around on the box, although what you can see is really nicely designed. So we're going to jump straight into it. First of all, the accessory box. A plethora of goodies inside here. We've got a screwdriver, which is a nice thing to see. You rarely see a screwdriver with something like this, so that's nice. Then you've got your mounting hardware for your 3.5 inch drives. A power adapter that's got a 2-prong power already installed on it, but it does come with a 3-pin as well for the UK. Then you get the USB to USB-C cable. Mounting screws for the 2.5 inch drives. Even a little screwdriver as well for changing the actual configuration of the drives on the back of the device if you want to go between RAID, JBOD or single drives. Also a little pin to press the reset button as well. Then obviously last but not least you've got your instructions. So onto the D2-310 itself. Now first thing you'll probably notice is the silver, and it does match the MacBook silver really well. So if you are wondering about using it with a MacBook, they would look really great on a desk together. So aesthetics wise that's going to be a great option. The actual unit weighs 1.3 kilos, so it's fairly lightweight. Obviously once you load it up with a hard drive it's going to add some weight, but overall a fairly small and light footprint. Not much on the front to see. You've just got the power button and then some activity lights for the hard drives, as well as a main power button. The hard drive lights do flicker as the drives are being read. So taking the drive bays out is really easy. You just flick the little lever up and then they slide out. You do need to screw them in. Some people might like to see toolless ones, but once you've obviously screwed them in you don't have to do it again, so fairly easy. Then they go back into the bays at the back. Important as well, it is noted on there that if you're going to use 2 drives in a RAID configuration, that you do use 2 of the same, just to make things a little bit easier. Make sure you have no compatibility issues. So on the back of the unit, fairly minimal in comparison to a NAS that we looked at before. So you've got a nice big cooling fan on there that actually runs whisper quiet. The loudest thing you'd hear would be if you're using mechanical drives, the ticking when they search. That's literally going to overpower the fan noise. So very pleased in that regard. Along the right hand side we've got the reset button. The options to change from the single drive, JBOD, RAID 0 and RAID 1. Now in case you're curious, JBOD stands for just a bunch of drives. So for example, if you wanted to transfer a wide amount of files over to your storage from your PC, it will put the files in different locations on the drives, not necessarily spacing them out equally. You may find that you have say 3 files on one drive and then you'll get 4 on another. But as it's not in RAID, it won't share those across different drives. It will just literally put the files wherever it can see space. Then your RAID options, RAID 0 is where it spreads the files across multiple drives. So example, you're basically pairing those 2 drives together as a team, then it sees it as one big drive. This can be a little bit tricky in terms of data corruption because those files are split across multiple drives. For example, you've got one half of one file on one hard drive and then half on the other. If you lose half of that file, you're going to lose the whole thing because obviously you can't repair just from half a file. Pros and cons to using RAID 0, you do get faster speeds, but there is that bit of danger. If a drive goes bad, then you're going to lose everything that's on it. RAID 1 uses the second drive and basically creates an exact copy of what's on the first. That's what I'm using in my NAS now. So I'm using 2 3TB RAID drives and I've got an exact copy on each. So should I lose one, I can easily slide it out, pop a new one in, and then it'll copy it back over. So definitely the much safer version, but obviously gives you half the space. Then below that we've got our USB-C interface and then obviously our power in. Not really much going on the base, just some pads to stop vibration and slipping, and also some air vents. So for this TerraMaster device, I set up a little bit of a scenario. I was previously using my SanDisk SSD in an Enclosure. I'm not going to name any names, but it certainly wasn't putting out the throughput that the SSD could actually perform with. And I thought this was the kind of prime example to see if I could put it into the TerraMaster and get the kind of performance figures that I would want, especially when rendering 4K directly from it in Premiere Pro. So this Enclosure is just a simple one. Push it in, slip on the cover, and then just plug it in from the USB-A to USB-A on the back. So the Enclosure was nothing fancy, but it certainly opened my eyes to what the actual SSD could do once I whacked it in the TerraMaster. And don't worry, we'll go through all that in a moment. Now, some things to note as I was installing it. I could only seem to use 3 of the screws actually into the SSD. Seemed a little bit strange, but it's an SSD at the end of the day, so it's not heavy. There's no spinning parts on it, so it's not really going to matter if it's not rock solid in there. As long as you've got enough security with it to, you know, make sure it goes into the actual SATA dock on the end of the actual Terra Master, then it's going to be fine. So I ran this in single mode because obviously I had one SSD. Probably going to get another one in the future, maybe to RAID 0 them together. However, if I did that, I'd make sure that I moved the files once I've rendered the footage, maybe onto an external hard drive or something along those lines. It'll be mainly to get the RAID 0 benefit, but obviously once I'm finished, I'll move them. I don't want to have any corrupt files on my hands. So into the nitty gritty with the results. This was from my external enclosure that I've been using for, I don't know, probably a year or so now. Mainly if you're just putting photos and things on like that, just general small documents. I never really tried to use it as a scratch disk during editing, but I was fairly impressed with these results. I thought that was quite good. I actually looked up this drive and then found that the estimated speeds the drive could do were double this. So that kind of put it into perspective that the enclosure wasn't performing nearly as fast as it could. Now onto the Terra Master results, and boy was I surprised. So that just goes to prove that that enclosure was not doing anywhere near of a job that the Terra Master enclosure could. Super impressed. And obviously you can see all those 4K boxes lit up at the bottom there. So this could be a great scratch disk. Add another one in RAID 0. Watch this space, I think we'll say for that. That's definitely something I'm going to consider for the future. Now some of you may be thinking, Jordan, all those boxes aren't lit up. Well, I can't actually edit in 10-bit anyway, so that doesn't make any difference to me. Adding another SSD into RAID 0 may end up allowing me those options as well in the future, should I need them. So yeah, could do something cool with that in the future. So as I did say in the very start of the video that I don't actually have hard drives I can test this with, unfortunately. I have given you some figures though, so you can have a rough guess at what you could expect to receive if you were to use hard drives in them. You could also use hybrid drives as well for even extra performance. But I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of how I would use this, possibly in the future as well, maybe possible little future setup thing. We'll see. But primarily, this will make a great external scratch disk. Whack a couple of SSDs in there. They're really cheap now as well. So making, say, a 500 to a terabyte, just purely scratch disk, wouldn't be that difficult at all. Like I said, using this with a MacBook will be good. The colours go well together anyway. Obviously, MacBooks have insane performance for the size they are as well. So maybe a little bit of editing on your MacBook, then coming back, bringing in your massive files, doing maybe After Effects, things of that nature. They do take a little bit of extra speed and space. Obviously another idea you could do there. Personally, I might actually incorporate this into a second setup that I'm going to use for editing. My PC is starting to chug a little bit, so this is definitely persuading me to move over to my MacBook to edit with. I'm certainly going to leave this video open, as maybe we could do a little future setup video, try and find some other ways to use this and incorporate it into my workflow. But for the time I've had to use this, and obviously you can tell by the scores, you do get great performance from your drives with this. And for the current price this is, if you don't need network attached storage that's, let's face it, expensive, but you still want to get great performance to your drives no matter what you're doing, this is definitely worth considering. Now there is quite a lot I've missed out obviously because I don't have the hard drive, so if you've got any further questions please leave them in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. My username is Jordan Ash Media, all in the description box below. I'll also put the link for the product down there as well if you want to get one for yourself. Thank you for TerraMaster for setting this out for me to review, and I'll see you all in the next one.